Going through the countless treaties that the United States government broke, relocating and killing tribes, and placing them as second-class citizens behind the white folk. Bloody Andrew Jackson decided tribes had the good land for too many years, so he relocated the civilized tribes and sent them on the Trail of Tears. There are a few problems with Native literature that could make many people question if it's true, like many Western authors or the common practice of depicting one single Native view. We learned about historiography, which is how past events affect us today. It gives us much more information than normal history. There are many bigger ideas it can convey.
We learn from Vindaloria, by Custer died for your sins, and how in compromises with the US the colonist always wins. Columbus used the doctrine of discovery to subdue the pagans' religious ways, then John Marshall reaffirmed it with Johnson v. McIntosh, which for total native sovereignty signified the end of days. The government tried to appease the natives by establishing the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It was created to manage the needs of tribes and to make the necessary pairs. The BIA took control of acts of commerce within tribes, which didn't seem right. They didn't have any native representation. All the members were white.
Paula Gunn Allen introduces us to the sacred hoop and the native worldview, which states that we're all connected, even me and you. Native worldview is dynamic, and men and women were treated the same. Most tribes had respectful, gynocratic societies until the patriarchal colonists came. Native illnesses happen when the world is unbalanced, as shown by the medicine wheel. They need to rebalance everything in life in order to finally heal. Time is cyclical. All of our lives are intertwined. We are all one: the past, the future, inanimate objects, and all humankind.
Colonists removing the native population,
Using a gun and its scope,
washing away the indigenous filth.
like a bar of ivory soap.
Most native tribes were gynocratic.
Then the white man came.
They used sexual colonization to turn them patriarchal,
They're the ones to blame,
justifying the rape of native women,
by thinking of them as objects,
one of the tools of Western colonization.
with no regard for who it affects,
Centuries of oppression,
causing Native women to be dehumanized
carrying on up to the past 50 years.
when they were forcibly sterilized.
Our first test of knowledge only a few weeks deep, and we have already learned a lot. From cosmology to sexual colonization, we have to review what we've been taught, making connections between ideas like forced assimilation in the General Allotment Act and the doctrine of discovery in McIntosh v. Johnson, which caused native religions to be attacked.
The Mestizaje people, Mexicans, Indians, and more, that all form a mix, all coming together for cultural survival, by fighting to reclaim Axland, among other tricks. Standing up against cultural imperialism, the Western world pushing the inferior people to change, not allowing them to keep their own culture, because their ways are considered strange. We encountered the others, multiple different cultures with mixed emotions. It taught us how the colonists first viewed the natives, and that we shouldn't have any preconceived notions. Some colonists had good first contact experiences, and some weren't so great, but those few bad experiences sealed nearly every native tribe's fate.
Huitzi's Seatlin asking to talk to Father Benito so he could forgive her lifetime of sin. She gives detailed stories of her life, some of which get under Benito's skin. She gave her accounts of the Aztec people being conquered, the stories much different than Benito had been taught. He slowly learned that history was biased, and it being rewritten was the conquistadors' plot. The Aztecs weren't defeated in war by Cortez. It was the illness the Spanish brought that made them sick. Glorification of the Spanish warriors was nothing more than a trick. Be skeptical of history. The conquering party could have altered the view. Always do your own impartial research, so you know the information you receive is fair and true.
Pocahontas was portrayed as such an iconic figure, mostly because her blood was royal. It showed that assimilation could work, because even a princess would follow the colonists and be loyal. The situation never occurred. When Pocahontas saved John Smith's life, there was a large age difference between them, so there was no romance. And she was already Coquitlam's wife. Pocahontas eventually turns into Rebecca Wolfe when she is kidnapped, civilized, and turned white, the idealistic symbol of colonization, who left for the Western world without a fight. When comparing Pocahontas and Malinche, Pocahontas is seen as much greater. They lived very similar lives, but Pocahontas is a hero and Malinche is a traitor.
Disney does a great job of hypersexualizing an 11-year-old. John Smith came to the New World for love, and Governor Radcliffe came for gold. Being more informed about Native life, we realized that some parts of the movie are wild. Knowing how inaccurate the story was, it's hard to enjoy it as much as when we were a child. Disney tries to sell the story to us with catchy songs and lots of laughter, and claimed that once John Smith left Pocahontas, left happily ever after. They made the movie entertaining and made people think it's the truth. But unfortunately, Disney is just adding to a new wave of ignorant, misinformed youth.
El Plan de Aztlán brings together people who the Western world sees as impure. They stand in solidarity with one another so their culture can endure. Uniting together as one, forming the cosmic race, attempting to win back Aztlán, their cultural birthplace. Trying to make the world a better place for them by making people more aware and helping reform institutions to improve services, civil rights, and welfare. They formed their own political party so their collective voice could be heard, to achieve liberation and economic progress in fighting back against all the oppression they had endured.
Civil rights and power groups. Different approaches, but their motives go hand in hand. Activists come together to occupy Alcatraz Island to reclaim what was rightfully their people's land. Big goals and aspirations and solutions to things that needed fixing. They might not have gotten everything they wanted, but they got some with the help of Richard Nixon. Hene Geogama wrote Foghorn and helped to decolonize with his bag of tricks, using the inherited memory of Native ancestors and identity politics. Foghorn kickstarted Native American theater, if that's your cup of tea. The satire and push toward activism have clearly influenced the ETC.
The type of theater used by ETC is agitprop. Their goal is to spark social action and get the atrocities they face to stop. Quinta Temporada and Los Benditos decolonize with satire. In Los Actos, they use minimalistic set design and everyday attire. We examine La Virgin and how she is viewed. There are many inaccuracies, which shows how much history is skewed. Then there's Anzaldua's theory of Guadalupe, and that expressed by Hicks, then there's only syncretism, which symbolizes cultural endurance. That is more of a mix.
Trying to get Bernabe with Consuelo, Primo and Theo lend a hand, but neither of them know that he's in love with the land. Colonists stole La Tierra from the indigenous peoples when they killed and fought, but native worldview argues that land can't be owned or bought. Valdez saw how the Western worldview has caused the natives in the land to be affected, which led him to write this play so history could be corrected. Indigenous theatrical praxis is telling us to not give in and showing us the way to decolonize in our own lives every single day.
Things have changed for much of La Raza. In the recent years, many members of the movement aren't committed. No more blood, sweat, or tears. To combat this lack of action, Salinas summons Che. He's going to help fix the revolution by showing them the right way. Who needs armchair activism? Don't be passive. Get out and actually do something, and the results could be massive. The Chicano Movimiento stands for those who have suffered and died. The people of La Raza all gather together to show their indigenous pride.
We turn our attention to Sherman Alexie and his novel Flight. It teaches us to not give up, but to take action and fight. It starts off with a boy named Zitz. He's half native and in foster care. Left alone after his mother dies. It's been years since he's had nice shoes to wear. Zitz takes the form of many people, from Hank to a pilot to his dad. He learns to not take revenge. There's hope, no need to be sad. Zitz ends up being adopted by Officer Dave's brother, and even though his wife is white, Zitz, or Michael, finally has a mother.
In week 6 we move toward the tangible unknown, natives trying to decolonize so they can reclaim their throne. No one knows what will happen or what the outcome will be. We just need to work to decolonize and then wait and see. The government deciding who's indigenous or people saying they're colorblind doesn't do any good for those affected. It just keeps them behind. Whether you judge them based on experience or what they technically are inside, it's not our job to say what they are. Who are we to decide?
We join Journey and Calvin Goodeagle in Larissa Fast Horses Play, the last two Marihoda, who are courted by the KKK. Their tribe is going extinct, with no help from the Gov, high rates of suicide and poor health services. They get no love. Journey is convinced that the memory of their tribe is doomed, and suicide is the only way. But Evan and Rebel come along with a plan. They claim they will save the day. Spread the word about the Marihoda, then the respect for them will bloom. There's another way to make a statement other than womb to tomb.
There's evidence that shows that writing about past experiences and how they made you feel lets you come to terms with your emotions, which will finally help you heal. Writing as Witness, written by Gloria Bird, she didn't want other people to tell her story. She wanted her own voice to be heard. Bird teaches us about the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. The government claimed it would keep the authenticity of native goods intact. But it was all a facade that tried to seal the fate of every tribe that wasn't officially recognized by the state.
Members of a small Inuit group, living in igloos and surrounded by snow, with members like Oki and Etanarjuat, who certainly wasn't slow. A different world filled with emotions, and love, sex, and shame, drawing similarities to the non-native world, showing how we're all the same. Etanarjuat's brother is murdered by Oki and his crew, fleeing for his life by running through the ice, without any coat, pants, or shoe. Etanarjuat showing mercy to Oki, not choosing to get revenge, but instead to heal. It teaches us that violence is never the answer, no matter how mad we feel.
Some natives have found a thing to do that will help them leave a mark, decolonizing through humor, most of which is dark. No event is off limits, not all the killings through the years, like Christopher Columbus coming to the Americas or the Trail of Tears. Getting natives to come together and all laugh as one, decolonizing in their lives while also having fun. Being able to laugh at all these jokes shows their sense of humor is alive and that their culture has the persistence to fight through and survive.
Natives don't want to completely eliminate the Western world. They just want to be treated well by the whites. By receiving equal opportunities and not having anyone infringe on their rights. We can join the fight. We can fight harder. So one day, maybe even the Santa Barbara Shumash can win back their charter.